Hello everybody. Sorry. Let me move the mic down. I had to get Oliver into bed and hopefully asleep. He was in bed and then he was rolling around and standing up and hitting things. So I had to go back through and put him back down to sleep. So hopefully he's asleep. Hopefully we have an hour uninterrupted from demands of children. Hello, I'm Megan. Nice to see you all. If you've not been with us before, we are Digital Hammurabi, myself and my husband Josh, and we make videos about ancient history, specifically ancient Mesopotamia. He has his doctorate in Assyriology, and I am most of the way towards getting mine. I have another 1 or 2 years, depending on how fast I get to write my dissertation. So yesterday we were on the Non Sequitur show with Kyle and Casey, and we were talking about Mesopotamian letters, which may not seem terribly interesting, except that personal correspondence from the ancient world is incredibly rare, mainly because a lot of that kind of stuff was written on paper and parchment and papyrus, and that doesn't tend to hold up very well in the archaeological record because paper decomposes, it gets wet and disintegrates and all kinds of stuff. We have the advantage in Mesopotamia that these letters are written on clay. Mesopotamia used a writing system called cuneiform, which is little wedges etched onto wet clay, which is then dried in the sun or baked in a kiln. So people would write letters on these little tablets and send them to their friends and family and political rivals and fellow kings and all kinds of different stuff. So they actually, hang on, sorry, my child is doing something. Go to sleep, Oliver. He's trying to rip his sister's drawing off the wall. I'm trying to work out if I need to go and intervene or if he's going to lie back down again. He's not. Let me rescue the drawing. I'll be right back. Sorry. Sorry about that, everyone. The baby sleeps in what was our 5-year-old daughter's bedroom, and she did a picture a while ago of the life stages of a tree. 1, 2, 3, with little fruit things. So that was hung on the wall, and Oliver is now tall enough that when he stands up in his crib, he can grab it. And I wanted to rescue it because Piper would not be overly impressed if she came home and found her beloved drawing torn to shreds by her baby brother. Yes, so where were we? Personal letters, really, really rare in the ancient world. Mesopotamia, we're very lucky, we have quite a lot of them. And what I'm going to talk specifically about today are letters from the Old Assyrian period. And I have my notes because I want to do this properly, because it's a really, really interesting period and I don't want to misinform people. So let me find where they were. That's not the Old Assyrian period, that's Mari. Okay, so the Old Assyrian period is located in the beginning of the 2nd millennium BCE. And what happens during this period is that the city of Ashur, which is northern Mesopotamia, sends merchants to Anatolia, which is southern Turkey, to trade, as is pretty normal. Trading and merchandise and commerce and all that kind of stuff happens a lot in the ancient world. But what happens is that these merchants from Ashur go, they move into a city called Karnesh, and they establish like a trading outpost called the Karam. And these merchants stay there for years and years. In many instances, they marry local women, they have children. And we are lucky enough to have several, like 25,000 tablets from their personal archives. These include personal letters, administrative materials like notes on who owes them what money, what they owe other people, records of profits and losses, like personal legal contracts, all that kind of stuff. So we have a really, really good idea of how these people lived, what they did, and how they worked. We also, in these archives, find personal letters from their families back in their hometown, back in Ashur, including letters from their wives. And if you were listening carefully, you will have noticed that they move to Anatolia and they marry local women. They also have wives back in Ashur. Very often these men had wives and children in Ashur. They left them there. They moved up to Anatolia to open up the family branch, the branch of the family business, and remarried. So we have a kind of weird instance of long distance polygamy here. And we have a lot of letters from the wives that they leave home in Ashur. What these women did when they were left behind, they would raise the children. They would also have a hand in running like the home instance of the business. And they wove cloth, which is quite a normal occupation for women in the ancient world. Weaving is a thing that you do. If you look at like the Odyssey, Odysseus's wife, I want to call her Penelope, but she's not called Penelope. I can't remember her name. Odysseus's wife spends the whole time he's lost at sea weaving. So these wives stay home, they raise children, they weave, and the fabric that they weave gets sent to Anatolia to their husbands, who then sell them and send them the money back. Mesopotamian textiles had apparently a really good reputation in the ancient world. So people in Anatolia really wanted to buy these cloths. So there was demand for them. So we have the letters that go up to Anatolia from the wives with this fabric are usually concerned with business matters, which makes them a little bit different to what we might expect letters between husbands and wives to contain. You have to read quite closely to find any real hint of personal feeling or emotion or affection or anything like that. So I've got two letters that are pretty typical. And they talk about the quality of the cloth that is being sent, and about business matters. But then I also have a couple of letters that are a little bit more personal and give you a little bit of an insight into like the emotional state of these people when they were writing. So I'm going to take a brief break and say hello to everyone in the chat, because I haven't said hello yet, which is quite surprising for me, because normally I spend the first like 40 minutes talking to people in the chat. So hello everybody, nice to see you. We have lovely people. Hello everyone. So yes, and we have 22 people watching. Awesome. That's fantastic. If you are watching and you like what you see, would you please hit the like button? That does us a lot of good. It helps promote our channel across YouTube. And frankly, I think everyone deserves to hear about Mesopotamian letters. I am horribly biased. This is true. But I think it's something worth hearing. So I have, like I said, two letters concerning the business side of things, and they are actually, I believe, both from the same person. So let me find it. Say to Pushu Ken, thus speaks Lamasi. That's quite a normal, typical opening for a letter. It's like saying, Dear Mrs. Lewis, and then opening your letter. It also indicates that these people probably did not read in their heads like we do. They would have vocalized what they were reading. So say to Pushu Ken, so speaks Lamasi. Kulumaya brings you 9 cloths. Idin Sin brings you 3 cloths. Ela has refused to take over cloth. Even Idin Singh has refused to take care of 5 others. Why do you repeatedly write to me, the cloth that you send me are no good? Who lives in your house, and who deprecates my cloth when it arrives in front of him? As for me, I do my best to manufacture and send to you fabric so that each trip at least 10 shekels of silver can come to your house. So that's quite short and sweet. It illustrates that these women are sending fabric to be sold by their husbands in Anatolia. It also indicates that her husband at some point has sent her a letter saying, why are you sending me this rubbish? The cloth you're sending me is no good. I can't sell this. And his wife is, as I think I would be, quite frustrated and insulted by this, and is asking who dares insult her work. She is doing her very best to manufacture what is required and to make some money so that she can help support herself, and so she's not entirely reliant on her husband sending money home to her. So the second letter is from the same person, actually the same woman to the same man. Say to Pushuken, thus speaks Lamasi. When you were still here, I had given Ashur-Malek a thick cloth, and on his return, I had given him, in addition, a kandumu cloth and 3 kunitum cloths, just different kinds of fabric. Why then, while I have not stopped sending you cloth, why did you not let me know whether or not it had been purchased? As for the cloth about which you wrote to me thus, they are too small and of poor quality. Was it not according to your own request that I reduced their size? And today you write to me again to tell me, add in your cloth 1/2 mina of wool per piece. So I added it. As for Urani, he has imposed on your representatives a huge expenditure on the beams he has to put in place, but he has not yet rented any day labourer. So we called for your honour, and he did not buy it. He took 10 sides of copper corresponding to payment in kind, and the beams he took 8 of them to your brother. The copper you gave him for your hose, but he gave me nothing. So we have there another somewhat terse letter, again saying, why are you being harsh about the fabric I'm sending you? You asked me to change the size and the thickness of the fabric, and I did that. And now you're saying that it's too small and too thin. So I don't know what you want me to do here. You either want it thicker, and then you complain that it's too thick, or I make it thinner and then it's too small and too thin. It actually sounds quite frustrating. And along with that, in that particular letter, you have something that is again quite common. These women were left behind to run the households by themselves. And while that was, doesn't seem to have been a huge deal, society at this time seems to have been very, very patriarchal. So the women are reliant on the business partners of their husbands, maybe their brothers or their brothers-in-law or their fathers even, really to get anything substantial done. They often don't have access to enough money. They're reliant on their husbands sending the money home. And you get many, many, many letters complaining that they don't have enough cash to feed themselves or to feed their children or to carry out essential repairs on their homes. And here she's complaining that while they've given the order for work to be done on something, the man they've put in charge of it is not doing anything at all. So she needs help, and it doesn't sound like she's getting it. I'm going to read these last 2, and then I think I'll go and get Oliver because he's awake and he's going to start shouting at me in a minute. So this is a very short one, but it gives you a bit more of a personal, a feel of the personalities of these women. Say to Shat Ashur, thus speaks Ashur-Malek. I am well, do not worry. Ili-Malik brings you 2 panarim for beef. I beg you, as soon as you hear my message, send me news and news from home. So this woman is actually in Anatolia. She traveled, I can't remember if she was with her husband or her father, but she traveled up there and is writing back to a male relative asking for news about the home and the family and what's going on. And the same woman, I think, so speaks Shat Ashur, say to Pushuken, about the disease, the whole house is affected. If you intend to go to the city of Ashur, make an offering to the gods. Father did not take care of me. You too did not take care of me, although I have no one but you. Measuring a ration of only 20 liters, they made me the equal of your maids. The maids consume 20 liters of grain, and I should be content with 20 liters also. As they do not care about children, so here you do not have to worry about them. Travelers came, but you did not get me. Who then should have plenty of respect for me? I have no one but you. All that I have obtained since the month of Namor Ashur is a votive offering that they gave me. And then the rest of the letter is broken. But the two things here. She's very worried about the disease that's currently raging in Ashur and is telling whoever she's writing to, please be careful. If you have to go to the city, give an offering to the gods to keep yourself safe. And then, again, a common complaint, I don't have anyone to look after me except you, and you're not doing it. I need you to essentially step up and take responsibility for me. And because again, patriarchal society, these women often couldn't do the things they needed to do to look after themselves. They were reliant on their fathers, husbands, brothers to take care of them. And if the man in your life is not taking care of you, you can't do it yourself. You have to keep voicing your concerns and saying, look, you need to do what you're supposed to do. And she gives a concrete example of how she's not being taken care of. She doesn't have enough to eat. She says that she's been given a ration of 20 liters of grain, which I don't know how many liters of grain one person needs. Apparently 20 is not enough. And she says that the maids have 20 liters of grain. Why am I being given what is equal to the maids? I should have more than that, presumably because I'm not a maid. I'm their, I won't say owner. I'm not sure if these women were slaves or servants, but I'm their owner. I'm their employer. I should not be restricted in the same way that they are. And she finishes by saying that all she's had from the representatives that are supposed to be caring for her is a votive offering to give to the gods, which is good and useful, but not exactly going to keep the wolf from the door. So, and actually, having said I need to go and get Oliver, I think he may have fallen asleep after shouting. Okay. So, yes. Interesting stuff. I would have more for you, except they've not been translated into English. I did not translate those from Assyrian because I do not have that kind of time. I translated them from French because they've been translated from Assyrian into French. But I went through the book and I picked out a few that I thought would be interesting. I like them. I think they're very humanizing and very interesting. And they not only show the economy in action and trade in action, but they show the humans and the family relationships behind the trade. So I'm going to see if there are any questions in the live chat, and then I think I'll just talk a little bit more about the Old Assyrian period because it's really, really interesting, and it's one of my favorites. Grandma Mo says, I really enjoy having a chance to look back in time. Thank you. You are very welcome. I enjoy doing this. It's really awesome. Smitty says, sounds like this jabroni is trying to weasel out of a deal. It does often sound like that. He wants to wear her down to a better deal. Where is this dunderhead? I'll set him straight. Yep. Deborah McMillan, it must have taken forever to ship these cloths. Yes. It probably would have taken around 6 months from Ashur to Anatolia, which kind of puts the problem of not getting paid enough in quite sharp relief, because if you have to wait 6 months in between each payment, that's a long time to try and scrimp and save and keep surviving on not enough money. Let's see. So Smitty and John Kobu were talking about the fact that the woman complaining that she wasn't being paid for her fabric is actually complaining to her husband. Smitty says you have to be pretty stupid to reduce the income of your own household. You do. I suspect one of the problems here is that this was a split household. The husband was living in Anatolia with a different wife, so he was effectively running two households. But you see frequent complaints from the women who are left in Ashur that they're either not paid enough for what they're sending to be traded, or they're paid late, or people are complaining about the quality of what they're making. So it does seem to be a bit of a systemic problem here. Tim Ham, how did the maids get their grain if not from the wife? Good question. So that particular letter, I can't remember if the woman writing is a wife or a daughter. And in either case, it sounds like, and again, without doing a bunch of research right now, it sounds like the grain is given to some kind of male representative who then distributes it to the people who are entitled to it. So I don't know to what extent the female heads of household would actually have held the purse strings. You do make an excellent point, though. I'm not sure. I don't know if she is maybe a daughter instead who's being given what she feels is an inadequate ration, or a sister maybe, because she speaks about her father not taking care of her, and the male in the letter also not taking care of her. Math Magic Pagan, did the first wives know about the second wives? Yes, they did. And if you married an Anatolian woman and you had an Assyrian wife, when you moved back home, because ultimately these men often moved back to Ashur, they were not permitted to bring their Anatolian wives back with them. I can't remember if this was a legal ruling, or if it was just you're not doing that, dude. This house is big enough for one woman and it's already occupied. But yes, they knew about them. There are a few letters that kind of complain about the status quo, about the fact that the women in Ashur are without their husbands and have no support, and feel very alone and isolated for years at a time. There are letters saying, when you're going to come home and visit, your children are growing up, come home and worship at the temple of Ashur so he can keep you safe. Ashur was the state god. Come home and worship at the temple so that the god can keep you safe. I need help. I need support. When are you coming home? So I think there was probably quite a lot of resentment that these women were effectively alone. They couldn't remarry because they were already married. But they didn't have the companionship and the assistance that a husband would normally provide. But the women in Anatolia that their husbands had married as well did have that, and did benefit from being married in a way that the original wives didn't really. Smitty, sounds like Ashur is prime territory for a lonely housewife hunter. Yep. It would have been ideal. So what I'm just going to briefly go over exactly how the trade network worked, because it's really interesting. And one of the things that is often argued or debated in the ancient world is to what extent trade was controlled by the palaces and the temples. And this is an excellent example of private commerce. These people are not representatives of a king. They're not representatives of a temple. They are there purely for their own benefit. They pay taxes, of course, import taxes into Anatolia, and then probably offerings to the temple, but they're not employed by the temple or by the palace. So the Assyrian traders would take up to Anatolia on donkey caravans. They would take out primarily tin, which came from Afghanistan, I think. So they take up tin, also lapis lazuli, and this fabric that their wives were weaving, but also they'd buy fabric from southern Babylonia. And interestingly, there are laws against Babylonians, so people from southern Mesopotamia, trading textiles in Anatolia. The Assyrians, the people from northern Mesopotamia, had a monopoly on it. And there were quite harsh punishments if you were caught trading with a Babylonian tradesman. So the Assyrians would take tin and textiles and lapis lazuli up to Anatolia. While they were there, they would trade what they brought for copper, and then they would trade further north in northern Anatolia. They'd trade the copper that they had received for silver and then ship the silver back down to Assyria. And I can't remember what kind of profit they made, but I took a class on it, and I remember it being a very, very lucrative business. These people made a lot of money, hence why they stayed up there for years and years and years, and why they didn't bring their wives, because having a family member in Assyria to monitor both your home business and to ship more goods up to you for trade purposes is good business sense. You can trust these people. You don't have to worry about paying them. Clearly, you don't have to worry about paying them because they're complaining that they're not being paid. So you can keep this trade network running really very easily. Excuse me. Yes, so that's very, very basically how it worked. There are obviously different nuances to it. People would go into trading partnerships with each other so that they had more capital to start out with, so that they could make a bigger profit. You have legal contracts that detail quite finely exactly how these things worked out, what happened if someone backed out at the last minute, who the profits get divided between, all that kind of stuff. So it's really cool. And these letters don't cover a particularly long period of time. I did have the time period up so I could tell you about it, but I appear to have lost it, which is very unfortunate. There's like a 30-year period for like the first iteration of it, and then there's a destruction layer, which means that the trading colony was destroyed. Anatolia at this time wasn't terribly stable politically speaking. There were lots of miniature kingdoms and princes warring against each other. So they would destroy. There was like a 30-year period, and then they completely destroyed the trading colony. And then there's a period of 50 years where it's just empty, and then people come back, and that's really the bulk of the information we have from it's called Karam Karnesh level 2. Oh, am I getting that right? I might not be getting that right. Either way, there's a break of 50 years, and then the trading colony is refounded and reinvigorated, and you have this trade continuing on. Yeah, I love it. It's really awesome. And the fantastic thing, one of many fantastic things, I realize I keep saying that this is all fantastic. One of the really interesting things is that these merchants and these women wrote their own letters. They didn't have scribes. They didn't have people that they could employ to write letters for them. They did it themselves, which is fantastic evidence for really a very functional literacy among non-elite people in Mesopotamia. Until this stuff came up, it was hypothesized that really the only people who could read and write were the scribal elite, who spent years and years training, because there are like several hundred cuneiform signs, and in order to learn them all, you have to go through a really, really rigorous training process. Actually, what people did in the Old Assyrian period, what these merchants did, is they cut down the sign list they needed to like maybe 30 or 40 signs, learned those, and just used those to communicate with each other. So you have in these letters a really, really restricted sign list, which makes it much, much easier for someone who doesn't have like 5 years to go and learn to become a scribe. I don't know that it took 5 years. I just pulled a number out of the air. But it means that they could learn how to read and write, and they could be responsible for their own communication. So you don't need to engage a scribe, get them to write it down, and then have it mailed. And then at the other end, they wouldn't have to find a scribe to read it to them. They'd be able to read it themselves, which I think is just really, really cool. It shows you that people were reading and writing for themselves like way before really I thought that they would be. Yeah, it's awesome. I love it. And we have all of these letters that we can read. And if you read French, I would highly recommend that you track down the book. Let me find the PDF so I can tell you what it's called, because it's an awesome book. It's called Correspondence des Marchands de Carniche, or I'm not even going to pronounce that because I'm going to butcher it more than I have done already. It's the letters of the merchants of Carniche at the beginning of the 2nd millennium BC. I'll put a reference in the description for those who are interested. It's just super cool. And it's only taken us 40 minutes, but that's about all I had to say. So if you have questions, if there's something else you want me to talk about, put it in the live chat and I'll see what I can do. Smitty says, you've just got to clear out when the men come back going whoop, 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 like Zoidberg. Yes, you could do that. They might be a bit suspicious, though. Deborah McMillan, the 50 years sounds like a type of the Jewish year of Jubilee. I don't know what that is. I don't think it was a deliberate 50-year period. I think that was just they couldn't return before then, or they were unwilling to return before then because of the political situation. Beach Price says this is like Chinese. They don't all know the full characters, just enough. Learning them all takes too long. Exactly. So you still have the elite merchant, the elite scribal class who do know the complete sign list and can read and write everything. But you don't have to have that if you just want to write a letter, which is very cool. Very cool. I enjoy it. Okay, there are no more questions there. So I'm here. I'm open. You have me for another 20 minutes if you want me to talk about something else. Otherwise, I'll do some work. So what do you want to hear about? I will say that next week, on Sunday, we are going to be doing Sunday Mass with Mr. Atheist, which will be fun. I've not done one of those before. And then the following Wednesday, Josh and Oliver and I are going to Denver for a conference. I'm going to try and get videos uploaded on YouTube so that I don't have to worry about uploading while I'm away. But we will be in Denver at a conference. I'm giving my very first official paper, which will be lots of fun, and I can't wait. We have a question. Jan Didrikson, hey, where are those letters found? What are they written on, and what condition are they in? So they're found in southern Turkey in domestic occupational housing, in essentially archive rooms. Like, it's kind of like someone finding my study. The letters are written on clay tablets, and condition varies. A lot of them are very good condition because you can read, like, in a lot of cases, you have complete letters. In many cases, they're not complete. There might be little bits that have broken off. Sometimes maybe there's only half a tablet, but we have a lot of pretty complete tablets. Grandma Mo says, what kind of social life would these wives have had? That's a great question, and I honestly don't know. And, you know, that would make a really good video series. I don't know for a fact. I strongly suspect that... No, in fact, I'm not even going to speculate because that would be irresponsible. I don't know. I will do some research and make a video about it so that I can tell you. Smitty, what sort of evidence for gays and lesbians are there in this historical setting? This exact setting, I don't know. But we do have evidence about... so there are some omen texts from a slightly later period that say if you have sex with if you're a man and you have sex with another man, you will receive good fortune. There are also some slightly confusing references to a class of priests that may or may not have been transgender. The some priests of Ishtar, people think may have been transgender. It's difficult to actually say for certain. There is also, from an earlier period, you get some iconographic evidence, which is interesting. There's a statue of a singer who has a male name, but the depiction of this person has quite prominent breasts. So again, whether that's a transgender person or like a third gender person, we don't know. But it does make us kind of question how we identify gender and sexuality in the archaeological record, especially with earlier practices, because in like the 18th, 19th century, early 20th century, Excavations often didn't include analysis of the skeletal remains. People's genders were merely, well, people's biological sex was merely identified based on what they had with them. So if a skeleton had a dagger, it was assumed to be male. If they had a necklace, they were assumed to be female, without actually like truthing this in some kind of scientific manner. So it can be quite difficult and quite confusing to say for certain exactly how gender and sexuality worked. Again, as with Grandma Mo says, this is something that I should really look into and make a good detailed video on, because it's very interesting and it's quite complicated. John Kobe, were they sent in envelopes? I saw an Akkadian court document which was sealed in an envelope. Did this happen for normal letters too? I don't know. The use of envelopes was pretty widespread, so I wouldn't be surprised, but I don't know for a fact. That's a good question. I should look that up. Sorry, there's so much of this I'm saying I'm going to have to look that up. Richard Wood, were there general rules to how a god idea was assigned to a man of power? I'm not sure I understand the question, Richard. Would you be able to rephrase it for me, please? Math Magic Pagan says the Housewives of Mesopotamia. Yep. See, that would make good reality TV. I'd watch that. I'd definitely watch that, and it would be amazing. Yeah, that would be fun. So while I'm going to add to my list of videos while I'm here, because otherwise I will forget. And these are some good ideas that should be shared. I'm sorry, by the way, everyone, that I feel like I should be able to answer all of the questions you have, and I feel like a lot of the time I don't, which is frustrating. So what did we say? We said sexuality and gender, and also women. Okay, good. So those have been added. Yes, there we go. Hooray. And the baby is asleep. Hooray. I don't know what else I have to tell you. Oh, this weekend I promise I'm doing another Enuma Elish tablet. I've got horribly out of the habit recently, so we haven't had. I've noticed that watching these back, I blink an awful lot, which is really weird. Has anyone else noticed how much I blink? So yeah, now I don't know. I don't know if I need to be careful and blink less, but then I think too much about blinking and it just gets very confusing. Yes, so I'm going to try very, very hard to record another of the Enuma Elish tablets, because I've got out of the habit and I need to do that. And they're fun and people enjoy them. John Kobe, what streams do you have lined up? We will be doing a book club this weekend, either Friday or Saturday. I don't know which yet. And on Sunday, we are going on Mr. Atheist's Sunday Mass. Josh has, it's not on the books yet. I think Carl said the first week of December, Josh is going to do a stream with the Non Sequitur show on the Bible's view of the earth as flat and how that fits into the ancient Near Eastern understanding of geography and cosmogony. I think that's all we have at the moment. This week was pretty crazy. We had like 3 or 4 streams, but I think now it's going to calm down a little bit. Alias fake name. That's like my favorite screen name ever. Was there some sort of postal system, or how did the correspondence get each way? With people who were responsible for running the trade caravans. When you sent merchandise to be traded with the person that you employed to take the caravan, you'd give them your personal letters as well. They deliver the letters, and then when the person on the other end employed another caravan to bring the silver back down to Ashur, they'd take any letters with them as well. And I don't know for a fact, but I'd assume that if there was a caravan going from either place, if there were any letters that were ready to be sent, even if you weren't the person employing the caravan, you might be able to send your letters with them, so you didn't have to wait until your own caravan was ready before you sent a letter home. Apparently, I'm not blinking too much. I'm just noticing it too much. Also possible. John Kobu, great. I love your streams. Thank you. We have fun with them. Deborah McMillan, going to love that subject too, about flat, or what I call planar Earth. Yep. It should be a good one, actually. It should be a really good one. Also this weekend, I think Josh has another, no, tomorrow we have a Hebrew Bible video going up. I think it's Learn to Read Hebrew lesson 3, maybe. And then on the weekend, we have another, I think another Sumerian video going up. I'm not 100% sure. I don't know. And Josh is nearly finished writing his Sumerian grammar. He's writing a whole book, which is pretty cool. Tim Hem, did Richard perhaps mean man of status of gods like pharaohs? Maybe. And actually that doesn't happen so much in Mesopotamia. You have maybe maybe one instance of a king declaring that he is a god while he's still alive. Whereas in Egypt, just being pharaoh is also being a god. In Mesopotamia, kings were very much human. They were chosen by gods. They were divinely inspired, but they were still humans. Except Naram Sin, who said in one of his inscriptions that he did such a great job that all of the citizens of a town raised him up as their city god and built a temple to him. After kings have died, you get something equivalent to the Egyptian circumstances. They are viewed sometimes as gods after their death, but they're not on the same level as the main pantheon. They're like maybe more like benevolent spirits or saints. Maybe they're closer to the Catholic version of saints than actual gods. Smitty is saying Josh is watching from the closet. You can see it's cracked open. That would be hilarious and quite disturbing. I don't think he's in the closet because he was at work an hour ago. We had lunch together. I went up and joined him for lunch. So I don't think he came home with me. I think I would have noticed. And now I want to go and check the closet. Thanks, Smitty. Tim Smith, are you guys going to discuss the Code of Hammurabi? We really should. We really, really should. That's going on the list. Thank you, Smitty. Code of Hammurabi. Because that is, as you may expect from someone whose YouTube channel is named after him, that is a really, really cool document. And less a code. That's just like a modern misnomer. It's not, and I call it the Code of Hammurabi. Everyone calls it the Code of Hammurabi. It's not a code. It is, it's more of Hammurabi publicizing what a just king he was and showing off all of the great law decisions he made. Even though it says in the either the preface or the ending of the stele, if you don't know what a ruling should be, come and check this stele and this will tell you. It really wasn't intended to be like a reference book or like a self-contained legal system. It's more of a detailing specific laws or specific judgments that the king passed in different legal cases. But we definitely needs its own video. Deborah McMillan, what was the name and how do you spell of the name the king declared a god while alive? Naram Sin, Naram-sin. He was a really interesting figure, actually. He commanded a very large area of Mesopotamia. Yeah, he was very interesting. He's a Sargonic king. And one of the dynasty of what is sometimes described as the first empire of Mesopotamia. Yeah, no, he's super cool. Definitely worth looking up. It's a fantastic stele, big stone block that shows him marching up a mountain, trampling naked enemies underfoot with all of his troops following behind him. Yeah, it's cool. It's really cool. But yes, he is the first Mesopotamian king to declare himself a god. I think he's also the last. This isn't something that is taken up by the rest of Mesopotamian kings. Oh, Beej says, thanks to Megan, I now know how to pronounce Steely. You're welcome. And Steely is a bit of a word because it can be Steely, it can be Stele. And depending on how you pluralize it, you can put an S on it. So it's Steelies, or it can be Stellae. I had to have a whole lesson on how to pronounce that damn word from my art history teacher, and I still don't get it right. But a single Steely is a Steely, as far as I'm concerned, and I will go to my grave saying it that way. So, Beej, if I'm wrong, we can be wrong together. A math magic pagan, what pets did they keep, or was it just livestock? Oh, good question. Mainly livestock. I don't know for like the common people. I hate using the word common because it just sounds so classist. The non-royal people, I don't know what if they would have had pets. In some stele, you get images of kings. Like there's one, the black obelisk of Shalmaneser, I think, shows Shalmaneser being given a monkey as a pet. But I don't know if they had like cats and dogs and stuff. The cat certainly wasn't as big a thing as it was in Egypt. They did have, well, I was going to say they kept lions, but I think they more kept lions for purposes of hunting them because kings hunt lions. Apparently it's the most kingly thing you can do. That's a good question, Math Magic Pagan. I'm actually not sure. So they did have cats because you get cats mentioned in Omen series. I don't know if they were house pets like that dude over there, or if they are just like feral cats wandering the streets. That's a great question. I don't know. Smitty says, don't be British. Being common folk is fine here. Even the elites try to act common when campaigning. But actually, he says, don't stop being British because we love that. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I didn't. I've been here 8 years, I think, and the accent is still this strong. I don't think it's going anywhere. Which is good because my mother would shoot me if I went home with an American accent. That would be a very distressing conversation. We shall see. So we have 5 minutes, everybody, and then I have to leave and get Piper from the bus. Doorknobhead says that we must live on the ranch because the cat is a dude. Cat ranch, herds of mice everywhere. I wish we lived on a ranch. I'd love the space. I would like the cows less. I don't have anything against cows. They just seem like a lot of responsibility. And John Kobe says that Pond is the reincarnated cat of Hammurabi. He thinks he is. He definitely thinks he's royalty. Smitty, where is a British mum going to find a gun? Well, she could join a rifle association and get a rifle, an air rifle. That would, I mean, she's not actually going to shoot me. And I know you weren't actually asking the question. I'm just being pedantic now. Cats keep the rats down. They need the hollow rats. Yes, that is a reference to the live, I believe a reference to the live stream we did yesterday with Kyle and Casey about rats being used as tampons. So there's a medical text that talks about a particular rodent, an ashumi, being sliced down the middle, and you fill it with myrrh, and then you use it as a tampon. It's supposed to be a fertility aid. So apparently if you use a rat tampon, you will get pregnant. It's one of the stranger ancient remedies I've ever heard. Tim Hem says that home counties don't have accents. Everyone else does. See, I don't think I have an accent either. And you're right, I'm home counties. They sound perfectly normal. I'm neither northern nor southern. Although if you ask a northerner, I'm definitely a southerner, so I don't know. Luckily in America, I'm just English. No one, yeah, I'm just generic English. It's all good. So I'm about done because I need to go and get my little girl off the bus. But this has been lots of fun. Thank you very much for joining me. I'm sorry there wasn't more historical substance. I do need to actually go through that book again because it's a great book. And thank you everyone for your questions. They were fantastic questions. And we have now some more videos. We need to do a video on sexuality and gender, a video on women, and a video on the Code of Hammurabi, which is fantastic. Those are great ideas. I can't tell you when we'll get to them because, well, I can't, because we have lots and lots of stuff. But thank you for joining me. This was wonderful. Like I said, we'll be doing a book club either on Friday or Saturday. We'll be doing more Gilgamesh. So if you want to hear me recite Gilgamesh in my charmingly British accent, come and join us. It'd be lots of fun. We normally start at around 7:30 Eastern Standard Time, and I'll tweet about it when I know what day we're doing it, and I'll put it on our website. So if you go to digitalhammurabi.com, there should be an upcoming events calendar that you can check, and that'll tell you what we're doing when we're doing it. Math Magic Pagan makes a great point. If you've enjoyed this, please hit the like button. It helps us out greatly. Yeah, I don't have anything else. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you at the weekend.